Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Trades Talk. I got a special guest in the studio today, Eli Zevin, GM of Aspire Software, a ServiceTitan company. You guys, we have been on an amazing run with Aspire at K&D for the last 5 years, and it's just an absolute honor to have Eli on the show. Eli, welcome to Trades Talk. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Justin. Honored to be here, man. This is very exciting and thrilled for a great conversation today.
Yeah, me too, man. I got a lot to chat about. I am just fascinated with technology, fascinated with how over the last 10 years, technology has revolutionized the trades. I mean, You guys at ServiceTitan and Aspire have been on just this really, really cool journey over the last really year as you guys went public on, what was that, December 12th, right?
Yep, nailed
it. What are you guys calling that? You guys have a name for that day?
So I mean, generally people colloquially refer to it as the IPO day, but it's the day of the trades, more publicly. And, we really thought of it that way. It was a big celebration in a lot of ways, not just for us, but for a lot of folks in the industry.
Yeah, I jumped on the bandwagon and just, I love where the trades are going. And it's great to see, the public markets have a pretty good take on the trades industry and what you guys have been doing for the last, just about 8 months, I guess, here, maybe 9 months. So pretty exciting, man.
Yeah, no question. It's been a fun ride for sure. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but a long journey that's led us here as a business overall. So it's been definitely fun to be part of.
Well, Eli, I know a lot of people are getting to see your name around as you are taking this new role at Aspire. But before we go into that realm and talk about what you're doing at Aspire, I had a chance to sit down with you and Mark Tipton for a few hours a few weeks ago and had an amazing conversation. I would love to share with the listeners a little bit about your journey at ServiceTitan because, man, you've been there for a bulk of the journey. And you're telling me some stories that, how it was at the very beginning compared to today. Just such an amazing story. So if you could maybe talk us through, how did you get hooked up with ServiceTitan in the very beginning and when did you come into that company?
Yeah. So I've been at ServiceTitan just over 9.5 years now. So long period of time overall. And when I started at ServiceTitan, it was not like it is today. We were not a household name. People didn't know who we were. It was a pretty obscure kind of up and coming company. And for me at the time, without any kind of background in the trades at that moment that I started, I was a little hesitant, honestly, Justin. At first, I was like, I don't know much about this. What am I getting into here? Am I really going to be able to help these businesses grow without much of a background and knowledge? I was a little hesitant, but ultimately was referred by a friend of mine who was actually a camp counselor of mine from when I was a kid. That's how I knew this guy. And he's employee 5 at ServiceTitan. So he started real early. I was a bit later than that. But he encouraged me to come into the office and check it out and meet the people. And, I really got a sense of the passion that everyone had working there to help these businesses grow. I mean, it was palpable when you were in the office. And they had the typical startup stuff you see that you probably, think of, early days of Facebook type stuff, the ping pong table, the beanbag chair, that was all there. But it was really that feeling you got in terms of the purpose and the mission. And it was like every single person I talked to, you would hear it. It wasn't just the people at the top. It was all the way through. And that was, that was really exciting for me. That was something I wanted to be a part of and wanted to kind of dedicate my time to. And luckily made the decision to do that. So that was 2016, February that I joined. And I just took a role like implementing the software ground level, entry level, just to get in the door. Didn't really have a software background at all and just wanted to help. And ended up being, I think, maybe my favorite role I ever had was that first role, just helping the small businesses really get a ton from technology. That was real fun.
That's got to be rewarding seeing these mostly family-owned small mom and pop businesses implementing a tool like ServiceTitan and then probably getting to see their company kind of not just grow, but their lifestyle change, right? They get a little time back, automating the billing system, getting the invoices out on the job instead of having to go back at the kitchen table and do them all at that night. I mean, that was the mission, right? That Vahe and Ara all, created from the beginning from their parents.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty
question.
Cool.
No question. I had a customer once. It was one of my early customers that we're going through the implementation. They go live, it goes well. And a week or two later, the guy sends me a text and he says, hey man, just want to let you know I'm on a beach in Hawaii monitoring my business right now. Thanks for all the help. Like that's literally what the text said. And this cloud-based software at the time was really up and coming. It wasn't common, and so he had never had the ability to do that before, and was able to do it. And that was one of those moments of my career that I think really launched me long term into really dedicating my life to this.
Wow. And when you were in the early days of Service Titan, what was the culture like around the
Yeah.
office? I mean, what did it feel like walking in there every day?
Yeah, so again, the passion was there for sure. I think there's another component here, and this is sort of interesting as we've progressed and grown, how this has changed. But at the time, we were all in one area, like of one floor of one building, which is very much not the case now, certainly being fully remote. But even before COVID, had expanded significantly. So those early days, it was like you saw everyone every day.
Yeah.
You knew everyone, including Ara, our CEO. I would walk over to his office and ask him questions, and so I think just culturally, when you're in a business like that, it's easier to have everybody rowing the same direction because you're seeing everybody, you're looking at them face to face, you're talking to them every day. Service Titan was also catering our lunches every day, so like we would all come to the central lunch area every day. It was like just very communal feeling, and I think that really fosters a positive culture. So it was very fun that way. It felt like a family in a lot of ways, like we were all there together for the same reason. And I think we have elements of that now, but certainly the challenge has expanded as we've grown.
Yeah, and I want to ask a little bit about that too. I think there's a lot of listeners out there in the trades or in software, what have you, but specifically in the trades, they're starting to create branches in their company, and they're going from that.
Yep.
We're kind of in that spot at K&D is we have one location, very similar to what you just explained. But as you move to 2, 3, 4 locations across maybe multiple states, it's really hard to keep that unified culture. What was something that, whether it was Ara, the CEO, or the leadership team, what did you guys do at Service Titan to ensure the culture stayed so tight as you all have grown so much over the last 10 years?
Yeah, great question. And I think it is challenging, candidly. Like this is a kind of a natural business challenge as you expand and look to scale, how you maintain a lot of what made you successful and figure out how to adjust some of that to make you successful in kind of your new path. So I think what Service Titan really did well at that time as we started to expand and grow started with our executives and our founders, Ara and Vahe, defining what that culture was and just saying it like, here is what we feel like it means to be a Titan, to be successful in this company, and to kind of maintain the atmosphere we need. And they defined it, and there's a document. And then they created all of these rituals around that concept. So things like every time we have an all hands meeting with the whole company, which is monthly, we have awards that are given out for people who did something extraordinary. And every time what they did is tied back to one of the values that they defined. So one of them, as an example, is we obsess over making customers successful, right? And so maybe somebody, got on after hours to help troubleshoot something for a customer at 11 p.m. because they really needed it. Like if they got the award, that all hands for that would get tied back to one of those values that they had defined. And so I think it keeps it top of mind. Everyone is thinking about, hey, this is what we're striving for, right? These are the elements of what it means to be in this company, what it means to be extraordinary in this company. So that was a big key. Number two is, I think from a hiring perspective, as you start to scale and hire people who were not there when you were in one location or in one place
Right.
or much smaller, you have to get even more diligent about hiring for the values that that you're looking for, right? That align with the other folks in your company. That doesn't mean only hire people like the people you have. You obviously are looking for new skill sets and new talents and diversity of backgrounds potentially, but being very clear on this is the type of skill or kind of really the type of person that is going to be able to be successful here. Somebody who's hungry and motivated, somebody who's always looking to learn no matter what, and that they thrive when they don't know everything and they have to learn it quickly. Like those sorts of values, I think hiring for those things is kind of the second thing that Service Titan really did well. They defined that, they hired for it, and then as you do that, especially hiring people who manage others, you can really start to trickle down a lot of that culture from the top down, even if the executives aren't meeting everyone or aren't in every conversation as you get bigger.
Yeah. God, that's great advice. I'm like taking notes over here because I love the rituals. And
Yeah.
it's so applicable to any business. It's not just software. It's not just trades. It's probably any organization, right? Even a nonprofit organization. We've
Yep.
probably seen nonprofits we've been involved with over the years kind of change over, whether it's a new executive director or someone else, and you just see that culture kind of shift as they
Yep.
potentially abandon the previous rituals of the previous administration. So I really like this idea of the document, right? It seems
Yep.
like you guys are very intentional about the culture that you want to create. And I will say, whether it's Ignite or Pantheon or another event, I visited your guys' office in Glendale. Everyone I run into that's a Titan or a Service Titan team member seems to have this kind of like aura about them. They're very positive. They're excited. I think excited may be the best way to describe it is
Yep.
it's not about one thing or this or that. It's just a genuine excitement about the future and about where the trades are going and the
Yep.
support that you guys have for the contractor. I think that shines through the values. So hats off to that and what you guys have built. I want to kind of dig in now. As you went through your tenure at Service Titan, from what I understand and talking with you, you really got focused on that success of the contractor, integrating the
Yep.
software, making sure people really are using it to the best, or really using it to where it was built for by the engineer team and the visionaries behind it. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe that journey within Service Titan that you took to, help contractors implement the software, utilize the software at the highest level possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, I started in this entry level role, and I didn't really know much about what it was about. I kind of was interested in it because I had always sort of like helped my parents with their iPhones, kind of thing, that I think a lot of folks do these days.
Yeah.
And so I always loved doing that kind of work. And so this was not that different. It was just on a bigger scale, right? And so I think what really allowed me to thrive in the role was understanding that checking off the boxes in an implementation is not enough. Like just doing the steps that are defined as how you get live on the software isn't really what it's about. Yes, that's probably table stakes. We do have to do those things, right? We have to train you on X and Y, and we have to configure Z and whatever. But ultimately, what makes somebody successful in implementation is demonstrating the value of the platform and implementing towards that value. So I might have had a client that didn't implement much of the software because they didn't have the capacity or, at that time as they were scaling or whatever it was. But what we did implement, we would always do with an eye towards what are you going to get out of this? How is this actually going to improve your operations in your business? And that, at times can mean some difficult conversations because, as you know, Justin, like people are very hesitant to change. And not
Oh
just
yeah.
the owners who are doing this implementation, like they know that about their team members too, right? So they would say, oh man, I got some of my guys in the field that I just don't know how they're going to feel about this. And so I think part of what made me successful is I would run towards that instead of away from it. I would say, great, get those guys on the call. Let's talk. Let me talk to them. Let me get in on that. And I think that kind of really helped drive those outcomes I was looking for. And a lot of this came from guidance from, my mentors at Service Titan and the executive team and all that. But I think that's really what made me successful. And then as I continued to grow within the implementation team, becoming a manager, ultimately overseeing, a lot of the team, I think that focus is really what led us to get a lot of the outcomes we were looking for. And, in my later years here before joining Aspire, that really led to a transformation in how we did implementation, focused around how we could take on the majority of the work, of the legwork, so that the person implementing, the client implementing, is just really focused on learning how to use the software and get the most from it. Early on, when we were doing it kind of years ago, a lot of the time of the main, point of contact at the business implementing would be spent on configuring the right things, entering the right fields, importing the right data. And they would not spend a ton of time because that was such a big task. They wouldn't spend that much time thinking about how am I actually going to use this to get the outcomes I'm looking for in terms of why we signed up in the first place. And so we really transformed the process so that that was their main focus. And I think we've seen a ton of success with that so far.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, that sounds like a great process
Yeah,
because you're basically learning an entire new language. And that
that's right.
was probably our biggest challenge that we had onboarding Aspire was, we used to talk, I mean, just simply like we used to say, oh, we closed a job and now it's we won an opportunity.
Hmm.
And it seems like oh, that's easy. That's not a big deal, but it kind of is because every SOP, all your language, how you say things, email, text, everything changes. And then it kind of compounds too. And if you don't embrace the new language, it's kind of like you have two different dialects or two different languages going on within your company. And sometimes culturally, right, you can get on different pages when you're not
Yeah,
speaking the same language. So I
thousand
really
percent.
like that take. So
Yeah.
what, with that process and onboarding so many contractors successfully, what are some of the things that you've learned throughout that implementation that maybe someone out there listening who's maybe getting ready to go through an implementation, or there's a lot of people I think out there that maybe have implemented but maybe haven't spent the time to learn the software. I mean, is there any
Hmm.
advice you would give people that are getting ready to onboard a new software? And I mean, I think this can be applied to anything from business management software to finance software to anything else,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
what type of tips would you give people going into that process?
Yeah, love this question. It's one of my favorite things to talk about because it's hard, right? It's like
It's hard.
this is where it gets hard, right? So number one is think about the people side of the change. You're not just changing technology. You are adjusting or changing really how people come in and do their work every day. On the day you go live with a new tool, your team's going to come in the morning and the way that they do their jobs is going to be different. And that takes a lot. That isn't just flip a switch type of a thing. That takes a lot of preparation and thought. The companies that I saw that were most successful with implementation, and I would really define that by not only getting the most out of the software long term, but getting a ton out of the software early too, right?
Yeah.
Like the companies who were able to accomplish that were hyper intentional about the change. So here's some examples, right? They would talk about it as early as possible with their teams. Like as soon as they signed up, they were announcing it to the company and they were focusing on the why behind why they chose the tool
Yeah.
and how it was going to benefit individuals across the company. So you would meet with your guys and you would say, hey, we're changing this tool. This is the timeline. Here's what you guys are going to like about this. This is why it's going to be awesome once we are in this new way. And people will start thinking about, the kind of the whiffum of it, like what's in it for me component of
Hmm.
it. I think businesses really thinking about that were more successful. Number two is, and this is a little counterintuitive often. Okay. So this is an interesting one. In sales, there's this concept that time kills all deals, right? So sort of a normal
Yeah.
sales concept. The longer, a sales conversation goes, the less likely it is to sign. Implementation is actually not that different. And it's counterintuitive because a lot of times people think, okay, I need to be super deliberate and make sure everything is done, and I'm not going to go live until we're 1000% ready. And I think that there is, validity to that perspective. At the same time, you have to balance that with implementation being a bit of a momentum game. If it takes too long, you're going to lose a lot of momentum. And I saw extended implementations were much, much more likely to be unsuccessful. And so I think there is this balance of like, don't go live and, when you're not ready, but at the same time, if you can't get ready quickly, you're gonna really struggle. And you can even think about it from a learning standpoint. Like if I train you on something today, but you're not going to use it for 2 months, you're not going to remember what to do, right? And so I think that speaks to this idea that momentum is incredibly important. The timing of everything is incredibly important. And if you wait too long, you actually can really stumble. So those are the two biggest pieces of advice I give. I think this kind of third, a little bit more minor one, though also crucial, is just make sure, especially for larger companies, that the roles are defined. Like who is doing what, who is owning what, who's holding the ball, right? And each task that
Yeah.
you have to get done. That's another really crucial one. A lot of times people assume everybody knows, and very much that is not the case. So I'll kind of leave you with those three. There's plenty more I could kind of go on for a long time on this one, but I think those are the biggest three crucial ones.
Yeah. And I love this conversation too, because I believe companies that have the ability to onboard software and the ability to change quickly own the market in tomorrow's trades
Yep.
industry.
Yep.
I mean, there's new software coming out every day, it seems like, for something else in your life or in your business. And now with AI, people are spinning out softwares like crazy. I get an
Yep.
ad on Instagram, every 3 scrolls, a new AI app to make my dog talk or something. And,
Yep.
but in reality on business, there's a lot of great things that we can automate, and some of it's good, some of it's maybe trash, but overall, like, your ability to implement software is going to be key into the future business. I really like the why and the benefits. And I would say, I think people sometimes do a really good job at that in that first 2 months or 3 months, and maybe that first month going live. And then as things get into the dog days of summer, or you get into the grind mode of whatever season you're in, you kind of fall off that talk track and you start just saying, why aren't you guys getting the updated, why aren't you putting in your material reports daily? Why aren't you approving time entry daily? And you kind of go into this almost like, watching over everybody and becoming this watchdog on the software versus talking about the benefits and the reasons why. And I think if you can get back to that talk track around, hey guys, this is why we did this software. This is the benefits that, these are the benefits that we're actually seeing. And if we can get a little better, here are the benefits that we will see in the future. And I know this because, and quick plug here for Aspire Ignite and Pantheon, if whether you're on Aspire or ServiceTitan, when you go to these conferences, and I've gone to Ignite for this will be my 5th year in a row, and you talk to other landscapers who are further in on the journey. And I've talked to some like Bob Grover, who's been on Aspire, I think, for 10 years or something crazy. He was like one of the first guys to go live, and the stuff he shares is incredible. I mean, when people tell you about their penetration rate or their lack of their lack of high turnover and their retention of customers, it's really incredible. And they tie that back to the software. It kind of drives me as a CEO to go back and say, hey, let's get that next feature rolled out that we pushed off during the implementation, and let's get back to the reasons why we did this in the original stance. So I think some of us, especially in September going into the end of the year, may have lost sight of the reasons why we implemented the software in the first place. So I think that's a good note.
And I'm happy you kind of brought up something right there around, implementation is not just what you do at the beginning. You're always implementing new features and thinking about it. I think all these same lessons apply, maybe on a smaller scale, but very much apply in those moments as well. And one of the things I was thinking about right there, when you kind of talk about the dog days of summer in particular, there's this very common chart or kind of graph in implementation around customer excitement while implementing over time, right? Yeah. And so the way that it works is like at the very beginning, it spikes. It's like really high because you just purchased the software, you're jazzed about it, you're amped to get it going. And then it dips significantly for a while and is actually even at that lower point of excitement right around the go live. It's only like typically a little bit after the go live, a couple of weeks later, that it starts to go back up and ends up higher than when it was when it even started. Because it's, again, seeing that value and seeing how it's actually going to impact in a positive way. But there is definitely this dip that happens when you kind of have that realization of like, oh, this is a lot. That moment, that this is a lot moment is coming. Like that will happen at some point. And so I think it speaks to, you have to get your team understanding the light at the end of the tunnel, what that's going to look like, right? To motivate them through some of those more challenging moments where they're sitting there saying like, oh, this is going to be different. This is going to be a lot. I don't know if I can do this. Like those are very natural thoughts to have, but only if they're excited about where it's going to end up at the end will they be able to get through that successfully.
Totally agree. And I think you can apply that to almost anything in life. I talk about vision a lot. And the reason people come and like, they ask, hey, why do people work so hard at K&D? They're not equity holders. But I see these people act as owners. I say, well, they're bought into the 10-year vision that we have and the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think you have to apply that to everything in life. And if you can bring these short journeys to life of, let's say, a software implementation, you have the reasons why and the benefits, you have that light in the end of the tunnel, and you said you have direct expectations with each person on the team, then that day when everything hits you like a ton of bricks, and it'll happen, and you feel very overwhelmed, at least you can identify, all right, well, so-and-so is helping with this and so-and-so is helping with that. And I had Katie on our team who kind of took charge of a lot of the data entry side of Aspire. So when I was getting overwhelmed, she was helping out on that. it really does take a team to make this kind of thing happen and identify who's in charge of what.
Yeah.
What are some of those things when you go back and you look at some of the most successful implementations, and I want to think of like smaller businesses, people with, because it's easy for someone to point at K&D and say, well, you guys are a 10 or $20 million business and you have all these resources. But when you look at the smaller guys, especially the smaller, route driven technology or technician guys who have one person or two people in the office, I mean, where did you see them be the most successful with implementation when you have a small team? Is there anything else you can build on what you've already said?
Yeah. So I think don't bite off more than you can chew. Like all of these softwares can do a ton, right? And that's, includes Aspire, a business management tool, but any other software that you might be looking at, like they can all do a lot more than you might want to try to implement on day one. And I think so it's kind of this, crawl, walk, run concept that you often hear about, right? Like start small and build on it. And I think in particular, when you're kind of in that smaller size, the software can scale with you. Like use the simple functionality and the core things that are part of the value proposition that don't require you to hire 9 people just to make them work. And then as you grow and get larger, because of the benefit you're getting from the software, and just naturally, the longer you spend working on the business, then start to adopt more over time, right? And I think it's one of the things that's so exciting about SaaS platforms like Aspire, software as a service platforms. They're always releasing new things that are going to help you get more and more value. So you can grow with them in that process. But anytime I saw a small customer who was trying to implement inventory tracking in Service Titan, I would always tell them this is not a good idea. You're going to bite off more than you can chew. You're not going to get the basic value because you're trying to get this kind of extra really cool shiny thing on the side and the value from that, but it's going to make it less likely that you get the core value over here. So I think that's like the number one thing that I would say is almost pump the brakes on yourself a little bit in that moment where you're really excited.
That's great advice. I actually haven't heard that before, but I completely agree with that. And I see it in practice all the time. I see people who struggle because they're not getting let's say labor, like in landscaping, for me, labor variance is everything, estimated versus actual hours. Yep. And I know some people who are fully implemented, but they don't have active live labor variance because they're not putting in the right time entry or they're not really tracking the jobs right. And then they're struggling with, let's say, inventory. And like you said, maybe inventory of your $150,000 in nursery stock isn't the most important thing to track and Aspire today. Let's get the fundamentals. And so, I think for anyone listening out there, talk to your, contact at whatever software company and maybe ask them, if you're struggling, ask them, hey, what are the 5 most important things I should be doing in this software? And make sure you're doing those first. And maybe you just need kind of like a reset. So, again, September, dog days of summer, a lot of people are struggling with keeping up on things. So I think this is very timely. Eli, I want to transition the reason I want to have you on the podcast is you've taken this really exciting but big new role at Aspire. You are now the general manager. You're succeeding Mark Tipton, just an absolute legend in SaaS software in the landscape industry. Can you tell us a little bit about how you landed into that role and what that looks like today and going forward?
Yeah. So first of all, I got to give a shout out, Mark, Dan Blake, Chase Cutler, Janet Brennan. There are some true legends who built Aspire over the last number of years and have brought it to the incredible place that it is. It is a incredibly impactful tool. It's an incredible culture, on the team. We have some incredible team members, and that doesn't just happen, right? That comes from a ton of effort, sacrifice, intentionality from the leaders who built it from the ground. And so I just want to make sure to give that shout out as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, look, I have stepped into this role. It's incredibly exciting. And, I started in early June and have really taken the last couple of months to try to focus on learning the industry, learning the tool itself, learning the software, and understanding kind of some of those fundamentals we were just talking about of, what makes it so successful for businesses that use it. And, a couple of interesting things I've learned. First of all, landscape is certainly a trade, although there's also this agricultural element that I think is different than a lot of the other trades I was working on service side. So that's been actually very fun to learn about. But there are a good amount of differences. There's certainly overlap with other trades in terms of, plumbing, electrical. A lot of those trades have things they call them memberships, but it's basically like recurring, work where you're coming to do maintenance and you're looking to do upsells from that. But there are so many differences that I've been learning about. And that's been fun for me. Like, one of the things I always think about is I just like learning generally. So
Yeah.
I'm always kind of interested in what's the next thing I can really dive into. And this has been a really fun and exciting one because I've been able to, learn a totally new trade that has some overlap, but is different. And then also just the value and impact that Aspire as a tool brings. I think the other thing that I hadn't given as much thought to and kind of could say I'm guilty of this, as I would imagine a lot of folks in the country are, is like until I was actively thinking about the landscaping around me, I wasn't thinking about it. Like it's almost like a given as you're just kind of going about your day in the world. But now that I think about it, it's like regularly am I seeing, I'm like, whoa, check out the way that this landscape was put together. Look at the color that they put there. Like there have been some really cool moments. My wife's been making fun of me all the time because I'm just talking about the landscaping nonstop wherever we go. But that has been a really cool eye opener for me, seeing that in a way that I never had before. So it's been really fun and really exciting. I think the opportunity for Aspire now is in a very interesting place as well. Like the software clearly has done incredible things in terms of providing value. And I think at the same time, what makes me so excited about this as well is there's a long way for us to go. There's a lot more we can do. And I think that is in a variety of areas, certainly in terms of what the product itself does, but also how our teams are organized and the services that we're delivering. A lot of different areas. I'm happy to dive in there, Justin, if that's what you're looking for. But a lot of opportunities for us in a variety of places within what we do and how we operate to make things even better and provide even more value for the businesses that we are lucky to partner with.
Yeah. Well, first off, I'll echo your shout out to the leadership team and Mark Tipton and everybody who's built Aspire to this point. It's really an incredible software. It's revolutionized our industry, and it's rare that when you look at an industry like the landscape industry and you look at the top 100 companies and you look at what softwares they use, typically it's going to be 3 or 4 dominant softwares. In the landscape industry, I mean, there's one, and it's Aspire, and everybody knows it. And it's really an incredible feat that has been accomplished, but it is also this opportunity to then double down and leverage that foundation that you guys built. And that's kind of where I would love to hear more about that. Is I agree. There's some exciting opportunities. The landscape industry is changing rapidly. Our offers are changing. How we interact with clients are changing. I think in some ways, the ServiceTitan and Aspire partnership has brought in a new level of maybe, I don't want to say professionalism, but a new level of trade expertise into the landscape industry that maybe we didn't have before. And we're starting to see more crossover with these really, really well-ran, HVAC or plumbing companies at scale, multi-billion-dollar platform companies. And as I talk to some of these CEOs and leaders of these, huge companies that have been on ServiceTitan and have done these incredible deals, I'm learning so much about how to apply that to the landscape industry. I mean, you don't see a lot of door-to-door salespeople in landscaping. You don't see a lot of that, what I would call like a one-call close, where you go to a house and you sell them an air conditioning unit. A lot of times we go to the house, we measure some stuff up, and we, 2 weeks later, we email a proposal, and that's kind of the end of our sales journey if they don't get back to us. We're starting to implement some more, what I would say, like 21st century sales tactics into our processes. Yep. And for me, I don't know other people, I'm getting a lot of those from guys, like Tommy Mello and the people at Gettle and others, really big, awesome companies that you guys have been a part of. As we look to the landscape industry and we look to Aspire's next phase, the next iteration of this, what are some of those things that you were the most excited about maybe improving or double downing on, or even just the back end of how you guys operate as an Aspire software support system? Would love to hear some of that.
Yeah. So there's a ton, kind of reference. I think that there's some work we need to do on the services side to make sure that the interactions we're having are even more valuable for our clients. But from a product lens, product standpoint, first of all, quick plug, come to Ignite. If you're listening to this,
Yes.
we'd love to have you. You hear a ton about this, the value the software can bring, our plan for the next year from a product roadmap standpoint, et cetera. I'll give a couple of teasers for you here, Justin,
Yeah.
on some of that. But I think it all comes back to value, right? And we understand, I mean, even me, one of the things I've been learning a ton on the last couple of months is you kind of referenced it, like a lot of the plumbing, electrical, HVAC, particularly on the residential side, it's demand work. Right now, I may have a membership program where I come out to your house twice a year and do some maintenance and try to upsell you on some things. But the bulk of the jobs I'm doing in those industries are demand, right? My air conditioner is broken. I need you to come out and fix it because it's 100 degrees outside. And, let's do this quickly, right? The nature of that is different. The way that I operate my business in that kind of a model is different. Whereas with landscape, right, we have a lot of our businesses are focused on go do the maintenance. That may be pretty low margin, right, on a weekly basis, and then look for opportunities to upsell. One of the biggest keys, I think, for us as Aspire is to help to more effectively facilitate your ability as a commercial landscape business to make that upsell, right? So what are we equipping your account managers with when they go out in the field and walk a site, right? In terms of helping them find opportunities for that upsell. You talked about labor variance. I think continuing to double down, that's where I would talk about that, right? Is which of your contracts are the most profitable? Where are you spending more time than you thought you were going to? How can you help adjust what you may sell in the future to be more accurate in terms of estimating that time and or understand what your crew is doing that maybe is leading to them taking more time than it should? I think there's a lot of opportunities for almost like comparisons between your crews, right? Which of your crews are better at the with the variance, and then what can we learn in terms of the crews that are better and help the crews who are not as good, in terms of doing that. And for us, leveraging new technology, obviously AI is the hot topic right now that we'll talk a lot about at Ignite as well, but leveraging new technologies, new processes, and the best business practices going forward to help our clients realize those gains. So it's really this combination of what we're doing in the product, but also how we're delivering it that I think is really that combination that allows businesses that use Aspire to see more value over time and get even better at the core of what you do, while also for the businesses that are ready for this, right, which we talked about a couple of minutes ago, while also finding new opportunities for new things that you could be doing, like 21st century sales tactics you talked about. Are you following up on those close loss estimates 6 months later, a year later, or even a month later? What is the talk track you use when you do that? How do you coach your salespeople who are making those calls? How can you use AI in all of those interactions? Those sorts of things, I think, adding on to the maturity of the industry and really bringing it, leveling it up, is another component that we'll be focused on here in the coming year or two.
Exciting stuff. And yeah, I'm looking forward to Ignite because I know there's going to be a lot. You guys always drop some new fun stuff, so I know there's some stuff around the corner coming out, and I'm excited for this next generation of Aspire with you coming in, Eli, and with the team that's behind you. It's exciting to see change in a positive way, and not anything against Mark. He's brought the company to such an amazing point, but I think it is an exciting point where you have this background in ServiceTitan that you've explained to us for the last half hour around. What I'm picking up is you're helping, and your passion is really helping the contractor be the most successful with the tools that you're providing. Yeah. And I think that is where the landscape industry is going to be going in the next couple of years, is how do we use this tool not just to make our businesses run more efficiently, but how do we use this tool to increase the average hourly wage within our technician base? How do we use this tool to help scale our company into multi-geographic areas, multi-branches? How do we use this tool to help us acquire additional businesses and bring them in to our platform? That I think a lot of people are now looking at this buy and build strategy. I mean, just in the last 2 weeks, I had 10 businesses reach out, probably 8 or 9 maybe, that are just ready to retire. People around the country that just like, hey, I'm ready to hang it up. I don't know what my next step is. And I think, and most of them don't have a software that they're on. So it's like, how do we integrate them into the ecosystem? So, the landscape industry is at such this evolution of this next step, and you guys
Yeah.
are I think stepping up to meet that demand, and I'm excited for that. When we talk about, mergers and acquisitions, and you've visited a lot of companies in the last couple months, what's been some of the takeaways of these businesses that you've visited in the landscape industry? I mean, what are the trends that you're seeing? Is mergers and acquisitions a discussion that's happening at the table? What are you hearing out there as you visit all these great companies?
Oh yeah, this is a big topic for sure. And this is one of the things I'm also really passionate about. In my previous role with ServiceTitan, I oversaw our M&A implementation team, right? So we kind of separated it out, but we had a team focused specifically on when you acquire a new business, how are you bringing that business into your ServiceTitan account, right? Or taking
Yeah.
over the ServiceTitan account that they already have potentially. And there's some interesting nuance there. But I think it speaks to the trades that ServiceTitan serves exploded in M&A over the last couple of years. And it became, I mean, it was like we didn't even really see it coming fully. And then all of a sudden we're like, man, we got all these implementations we got to do for all these M&As. Let's create a specialty team and all that. I think the landscape industry is like just on the heels of the
Yep.
other trades that ServiceTitan serves in that way. And so this was a major topic as I was visiting a lot of businesses across the country, and I think that there's so many components to it. One of the things that I was thinking about when you're talking about the business owner who might want to retire, like Aspire can be valuable on both sides of that equation. On the one hand, it could be, hey, implement Aspire now. If you're thinking about retiring in a couple of years, implement Aspire now. It can really help you both get your numbers to a better place, but also show potential acquirers more about your business, right? In a way that they're going to be able to digest more effectively to understand more about how you're performing. So there's that side of it. And then certainly the other side, which is, I've certainly heard from a lot of folks that part of their playbook is acquire a business not on Aspire and bring it on bring it onto the platform and then see the improvements, right? And the numbers improve from that move, not alone, but as one of the core parts of that playbook. And so I think it's a really exciting time. And for us as Aspire, like we have to be able to nail it on both sides of that equation that I talked about. Generally, when you're implementing a merger or an acquisition, speed is one of the things you care about the most. Like, I got to get this on quickly because I got to do roll-up reporting and get my financials in order and all these things. And so I think we need to do a better job on our side defining a path for implementation that can go more quickly and to make sure that the acquirer understands what are the trade-offs if I want to go at that speed, because you do have to kind of think from a trade-offs lens. So this is huge right now, Justin, and I'm looking forward to digging into it even more as it continues to grow and expand. And I think it's really exciting for all of our clients who are, looking around and saying, hey, how can we grow more quickly here? And how can we utilize Aspire to help us do so?
Yeah, last week, the podcast I dropped is with Jeff Harkness, and he talks in detail about what's happening in the landscape industry and this explosion that I would say is kind of coming from the, plumbing, heating, and electrical fields and what we're seeing in the roll-up platforms there, and it's kind of coming into the landscape industry now. One thing I would add to that, and I really think the whole idea of if you're looking to sell, implementing Aspire is a huge value add, because I see it like we talked about speaking the same language. It's like when you're in another country and you're in Italy and everyone's speaking Italian, and then you're at a bar and you run into someone who speaks English. You're like, hey, someone else. And you start hanging out and you guys, talk shop or whatever. Yep. Well, I almost want to say it's a similar thing when an M&A person, a platform company is looking to buy, they're interviewing maybe 50 companies to find one. And of those 50, there's a few that are already on Aspire, and they go, hey, look, we speak the same language. Maybe we're not going to get as much, maybe that, up front, like value of putting in a new software, but gosh, we're going to save a lot of time through this implementation. Yep. And it proves to them too, beyond financials and everything else, it proves that you have a team that's capable of change.
Yeah.
If you've onboarded Aspire in the last 3 years, it shows a buyer that you have this ability to onboard and now speak a new language, which they want to see, because most likely they're going to come in and implement, a fair amount of their systems within your company that has made their investment thesis successful to date. So I would say there's a huge value in that if you're looking to sell. And, another indication of this is just look at the conference track talk on any conference right now in the landscape industry, whether it's Ignite, it's Elevate or Equip, another, you're just seeing M&A, flood the agenda of what people are talking about. So
Yep.
it's an exciting time to be a landscaper, whether you're looking to buy or looking to sell. You can really, at this point, you can create generational wealth with almost any size company in just a few years by scaling it up to around that $1 million in EBITDA, rolling out an Aspire type software, and then building out a good culture. And I mean, you're going to have, 12 to 15 buyers on your doorstep the next day. So it's an exciting time. And, I'm glad to have you in the industry for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to call out like those things you just referenced in terms of building out the culture and putting in the tool and growing the business and all that. Those it's hard to do, but the people who can do it effectively are going to see incredible outcomes. And that is, I think, the perfect place for the industry to be in, right? If you can be successful in something that not everyone's capable of, but that, is certainly possible to do, that you're going to get a great outcome and can, potentially impact your family. As you talk about generational wealth, I mean, you can impact the future of your family in significant ways by being part of this industry, and really diving into it head first. And there's no better place to be as an industry, in my opinion, than that.
Oh my gosh. I completely agree with that. Yeah, it's an exciting time. And look, we'll be at Ignite next week talking about this and so much more. So if you guys are listening and you want to make a last trip run to Ignite, jump on the plane. It's in Anaheim this year. So I think most of us on the West Coast are usually flying eastward for most of the conferences. Yep. So appreciate you guys bringing it back here to the Golden State. Awesome.
Yep. Absolutely. And I'll just say for all the listeners, if you're at Ignite, come introduce yourself. Let's shake hands. Let's talk. I put an immense value on meeting folks face to face. And so if you're hearing this and you're going to be there, please come and introduce yourself. I'd love to meet you.
Awesome. Well, Eli, thanks so much for being on the podcast today. I think we're going to have you back in like 6 to 12 months and talk about all the stuff you guys are changing and doing. It'll be a lot of fun to watch this journey. And thanks for being so open and sharing so many insights, especially on the implementation side. Really appreciated those notes.
Yeah, you got it, Justin. It was an honor to be here. Really appreciate it, and would love to come back.
All right, guys. Take care and keep raising the bar out there. We'll see you.
Thanks for tuning in to Trades Talk, where the next generation of disruptors comes to raise the bar. If you got value from today's episode, share it with someone in the trades who's ready to level up. For more tools, insights, and community, follow host Justin White and join the movement at jwhitegroup.com.